In London today, the man with the toughest of reputations as a Bush foreign policy hawk, the US ambassador to the United Nations, John Bolton, gave Newsnight an exclusive glimpse into administration thinking on Iran, Iraq and the UN. For those on the left in America and abroad, John Bolton is the most hawkish of hawks, the neoconservatives' neocon. Putting him in the United Nations was letting the fox into the chicken house.
Secretariat building in New York has 38 stories. If you lost 10 stories today, it wouldn't make a bit of difference. The United States makes the UN work when it wants it to work. And that is exactly the way it should be, because the only question for the United States is what's in our national interest. And if you don't like that, I'm sorry, but that is the fact.
Ambassador Bolton's nomination failed to reach a confirmation vote in the US Senate. Some senators were troubled by allegations he had bullied subordinates and possibly used his government position to gather intelligence on rivals in the federal government. But President Bush stood by his man, bulldozing the appointment through during a congressional recess. However he came to the UN, John Bolton clearly enjoys George Bush's confidence, full backing for his mission for a cultural revolution at the UN. He began with 750, that's 750 amendments to change how the UN is run. But top of his list of challenges is Iran. Can he persuade the Security Council to be tough on Tehran, where, in Washington's eyes, they failed to be tough on Saddam Hussein? I caught up with Ambassador Bolton at Chatham House and suggested to him that if the Iranians are keen to expand their nuclear program, there's nothing much he or the UN can do about it.
No, I don't agree with that. I think there are several things we can and should do to stop them, because an Iran with nuclear weapons should not be acceptable to anyone.
Although they say it's nuclear power.
Well, they say, but this is a country that floats on a big sea of oil and natural gas, and the only reason they're engaged in the complete set of activities they are is explainable by a desire for nuclear weapons. But I think through both diplomatic pressure and through efforts such as the Proliferation Security Initiative to cut off Iranian access to nuclear and ballistic missile technology, that it is possible to prevent them from getting a nuclear capability. This is something that is very high priority for the United States and for the government of the United Kingdom.
Well, the investigative journalist Seymour Hersh joins us now on the line. Tell us first of all what the CIA report says.
Well, as much as I can tell about it, it simply says that they looked very hard through very highly what they call national technical means. That is satellites, and occasionally we do run agents. We and the Israelis both have people that do go inside Iran and run classified covert operations rather, to try and sniff out nuclear detection materials, radiation materials, and we found nothing. That doesn't mean Iran doesn't have some dark, deep secret, but the CIA told the White House, we have found no evidence of a major ongoing weapons program. And they also warned the White House. Their assessment was that if the United States did attack Iran, there's been much talk about that, pro and con, it could play right into Iran's hands and create an even bigger problem for us all over the Middle East.
So does this have echoes of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq to you?
Oh, it sure does, because when that report came in, if you remember, the White House before Iraq was simply dismissing any allegation from anybody in the American intelligence community and outside, suggesting that Iraq did not have nuclear weapons. There were such reports, and they were dismissed. This report was dismissed by the White House, and right now the flavor of the week is there's new intelligence from the Israelis, the Israeli Secret Service that's being circulated in Washington, saying that indeed there is evidence brand new evidence from human sources that Iran is trying to make a bomb. So we have this same old game going back and forth as we did before 2003.
The UN-America tussle will continue next week when another UN document is delivered to a meeting of 178 kings, presidents and prime ministers. The largest ever gathering of world leaders will receive a report that its authors hope will usher in the biggest shake-up in the UN's 60-year history. but the United States might scuttle it yet. George Bush's ambassador to the UN has submitted no less than 750 amendments to the document, which are said to take the guts out of the entire project. Well, BBC World's Lise Doucette met the Secretary-General this afternoon.
Kofi Annan, in a few days' time, what's being described as the largest ever gathering of world leaders will start in New York. You have described it as nothing less than a mandate and a vision to change the world. Are you angry that the US is now trying to hijack it?
I had expected the member states really to move much faster and be much more focused and much more businesslike, because a lot of effort went into this. I first set up a high-level panel of 16 wise men and women who to discuss the topic, challenges, threats, and change that we face now. And they did, and they came up with a very competent report. We also put together another group led by Jeffrey Sachs of 240 economists and development experts who looked at the Millennium Project, did a Millennium Project report. Having studied those two documents, I synthesized their ideas and gave them a document titled In Larger Freedom, which is a basic document on which they were to work. And I wanted to make sure they had as much time as possible.
So you worked on it for about a year. The team has been working on it for some six months. Weeks ago, 750 amendments come from the new U.S. Ambassador, John Bolton.
Yeah. I think it's unfortunate that these proposals came this late, because when you are in negotiations, if one party makes a move, the dynamics is such that it affects the others, and they either consider that the floodgates are open and they can come with their own amendments, or they should hold the line and not move. And so you have tactical block. They place tactical blocks on key aspects of the proposal.
The United States makes the UN work when it wants it to work. And that is exactly the way it should be, because the only question for the United States is what's in our national interest. And if you don't like that, I'm sorry, but that is the fact.